So I wrote a book in 1995, and I said that if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, the next thing you'll see is the militant Islamists bringing down the World Trade Center. Other nut ideologies don't do that.
So I received this meme, and I thought, okay, I'll research it, let's see. So the meme says, the dancing Israelis. It was reported in the New York Times that a group of 5 men had set up video cameras aimed at the Twin Towers prior to the attack on 9/11. So on the 11th of September 2001, supposedly a couple of cameras had been set up on a roof and they were aimed at the Twin Towers, right, and they were filming as the attacks happened. So at this point nobody knew who the attackers were, what religion they belonged to, or what affiliations they had, but there was supposedly some people who'd set up the cameras and they were pointing at the Twin Towers and they were recording. So multiple witnesses saw them jumping for joy in Liberty State Park after the initial impact, celebrating on a roof in Weehawken and high-fiving in a New Jersey City parking lot. Within hours, they were arrested by New Jersey police and eventually deported 10 weeks later on immigration violations. Okay. Right, during the interview on Israeli TV, one of the groups stated, "Our purpose was to document the event," suggesting that they had foreknowledge of the day's eventualities. Okay, let's go on to Google and type in the dancing Israelis. So when you type in on Google the dancing Israelis, what we get is ABC News here, a story from 2006. Okay, so let's read this from 2006. June 21, 2002. So this is like about 7-8 months after the 9/11 attacks. Millions saw the horrific images of the World Trade Center attacks, and those who saw them won't forget them. But a New Jersey homemaker saw something that morning that prompted an investigation into 5 young Israelis and their possible connection to Israeli intelligence. Maria, who asked us not to use her last name, had a view of the World Trade Center from her New Jersey apartment building. She remembered the neighbor calling her shortly after the first plane hit the towers. She grabbed her binoculars and watched the destruction unfolding in Lower Manhattan. But as she watched the disaster, something else caught her eye. Maria says she saw 3 young men kneeling on a roof of a white van in the parking lot of her apartment building. They seemed to be taking a movie, Maria said. The men were taking a video of photos of themselves with the Trade Center burning in the background. How very odd, she said. What struck Maria was the expressions on the men's faces. They were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. I thought it was very strange, she said. She found the behaviour so suspicious that she wrote down the license plate of the van and called the police. Before long, the FBI was also on the scene and a statewide bulletin was issued on the van. The plate number was traced to a van owned by a company called Urban Moving. Around 4 p.m. on September the 11th, the van was spotted on a service road off Route 3 near New Jersey's Giant Stadium. A police officer pulled the van over, finding 5 men between 22 and 27 years old in the vehicle. The men were taken out of the van at gunpoint and handcuffed by the police. The arresting officer said that they saw a lot that aroused their suspicion about the men. One of the passengers had $4,700 in cash hidden in his socks. Another was carrying 2 foreign passports. A box cutter was found in the van. But perhaps the biggest surprise for the officers came when the 5 men identified themselves as Israeli citizens. "We are not your problem." According to the police officer report, one of the passengers told the officers they had been on the West Side Highway in Manhattan during the incident, referring to the World Trade Center attacks. The driver of the van, Sivan Kurzberg, told the officers, "We are Israelis. We are not your problem. Your problems are our problems. The Palestinians are the problem." The other passengers were his brother Paul Kurzberg, Yaron Shmuel, Od Elner, and Omar Marmari. When the men were transferred to jail, the case was transferred out of the FBI Criminal Division into the Bureau's Foreign Counterintelligence Section, which is responsible for espionage cases, ABC News has learned. One reason for the shift, sources told ABC News, was that the FBI believed Urban Moving may have been providing cover for an Israeli intelligence operation. After the 5 men were arrested, the FBI got a warrant and searched Urban Moving's Weehawken, New Jersey offices. The FBI searched Urban Moving offices for several hours, removing boxes of documents and dozen computer hard drives. The FBI also questioned Urban Moving's owner. His attorney insists that his client answered all of the FBI's questions, but when FBI agents tried to interview him again a few days later, he was gone. Okay? So if you're innocent and you haven't got anything to do with it, you suddenly chip. And he's gone where, of all places? To Israel. 3 months later, 2020's cameras and photographed the inside of Urban Moving, and it looked as if the business had been shut down in a big hurry. Cell phones were lying around, office phones were still connected, and the property of dozens of clients remained in the warehouse. The owner had also cleared out of his New Jersey home, put it up for sale, and returned with his family. Lo and behold, guess where to? Israel. Okay, so you got nothing to hide from, you haven't done anything wrong, but you run away to Israel. Ooh, a scary situation. Stephen Gordon, the attorney for the 5 Israeli detainees, acknowledged that his client's actions on September 11 would easily have aroused suspicions. No shit, Sherlock. You got a group of guys that are taking pictures on the rooftop of the World Trade Center. They're speaking in a foreign language. They've got 2 passports on them, and one's got a wad of cash on him. They got box cutters now. That's a scary situation. No shit, Gordon. But Gordon insisted that his clients were just 5 young men who had come to America for a vacation. Okay, Gordon, now, come on. What the fuck? You got better police work happening on CSI and NCIS and all that shite than you got in real life. The 5 Israelis were held at a Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, ostensibly for overstaying their tourist visa and working in the United States illegally. Oh shit. 2 weeks after their arrest, an immigration judge ordered them to be deported. But sources told ABC News that FBI and CIA officials in Washington put a hold on the case. The 5 men were held in detention for more than 2 months. Some of them were then placed in solitary confinement for 40 days, and some of them were given as many as 7 lie detector tests. Ooh. Since their arrest, plenty of the speculation has swirled about the case and the 5 men were doing that morning. Eventually, the forward respected Jewish newspaper in New York reported the FBI concluded that 2 of the men were Israeli intelligence operatives. Oh, wow. So, a Jewish newspaper, right? 5 dancing Israelis on the roof when the September 11 attacks happened. There were no Jewish people in the Twin Towers on 9/11. Come on, for fuck's sake. Right, Vince Canistaro, former chief of operations for counterterrorism with the CIA, who is now a consultant for ABC News, said federal authorities' interest in the case was heightened when some of the men's names were found in a search of a national intelligence database, Israeli intelligence connection. According to Canistaro, many people in the US intelligence community believe that some of the men arrested were working for Israeli intelligence. Canistaro said there was speculation as to whether Urban Moving had been set up or exploited for the purpose of launching an intelligence operation against radical Islamists in the area, particularly in New Jersey, New York area. Come on, what a load of flipping bollocks. Come on, man, please. For the FBI deciphering the truth, the 5 Israelis proved to be difficult. One of them, Paul Kurtzberg, refused to take a lie detector test for 10 weeks. For fuck's sake. Then he failed it, according to his lawyer. Another of his lawyers told us Kurtzberg had been reluctant to take the test because he had once worked for Israeli intelligence in another country. Oh dear. Oh, come on, guys. Right, what we need to do now is go and type in to Google the Lavon affair. So guys, when you type in the Lavon affair into Google, what you get is, right, the Lavon affair was a failed Israeli covert operation, codenamed Operation Susanna, conducted in Egypt in the summer of 1954 as part of a false flag operation. A group of Egyptian Jews were recruited by Israeli military intelligence to plant bombs inside Egyptian, American and British-owned civilian targets, cinemas, libraries and American educational centers. So just focus on that. So basically, Israelis were going to go and plant bombs in British and American establishments and blow them up, and the bombs were timed to detonate several hours after closing time. The attacks were to be blamed on the Muslim Brotherhood. Right, come on. So the Israelis in the past, in 1954, had planned to kill British and American citizens and blame it on Muslims. Right? Is it possible that on 9/11 that the Israelis committed 9/11 and blamed it on the Muslims? Come on. It's not that far-fetched. You've got the evidence there. USS Liberty attacks, right? The Lavon affair. Right? You've got 100 other examples. Look at them killing the journalists in Palestine at present. Look at them committing a genocide in 2023-24. What more evidence do you need?
You look at Larry Silverstein, who's a terrific owner in New York and a very good friend of mine who I just called. I was very worried about him because I assumed maybe he was in the building. He took possession of the building 1 week ago. As you know, he just bought the World Trade Center.
Right.
And he was in his office, and he was getting ready to move into the World Trade Center over the next 2 weeks. So,
Where were you on September 11th?
I was home. And the only reason I wasn't where I was every morning subsequent to the 26th day of July, my mornings were spent usually at a breakfast meeting at Windows, and so my mornings were spent at the Trade Center, and then by noon I was back uptown, and so that particular morning, because I have light-colored hair and fair skin, and I'm an annuity to the dermatologist, my wife, God bless her, had made an appointment for me at the doctor. And I remember dressing to go to the doctor, and finally saying to my wife, I said, sweetheart, I've got so much to do downtown, I got to cancel this, I've got to go downtown. And she said, you're not going to cancel this appointment. You're going to the dermatologist. And you don't have
the Iraqis did not knock down. It was not Saddam Hussein that knocked down the World Trade Center. Okay.
That a clear connection between Saddam and September 11th must be established before we have a right to prevent the next September 11th. Well, I think not. Because Saddam's nuclear program has fundamentally changed in those 2 decades. He no longer needs one large reactor to produce the deadly material necessary for atomic bombs. He can produce it in centrifuges the size of washing machines that can be hidden throughout the country. And I want to remind you that Iraq is a very big country.
Going into Iraq may have been the worst decision any president has made in the history of this country. That's how bad it is, okay? Spend $2 trillion in Iraq and fighting Iraq. $2 trillion. 2 trillion. Thousands of lives, right? We got nothing.
If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region.
We have nothing. We're not even there. We can't even make a phone call right now.
The 2 nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran. And Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems that they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States within 15 years. Brought a diagram for you. Here's a diagram. By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage.
As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit. We'll work something out, but I would like to see a deal be made. I think a deal will be made. It might be a bigger and better deal than people in this room even understand. That's a possibility. So let's see what we do.
Let's try it.
Doesn't sound too optimistic, but that's okay. And after meeting with Bibi for 3 minutes, I looked at him and said, you don't want to make a deal, do you? And he said, well, and the fact is, I don't think Bibi ever wanted to make a deal.
Why?
I thought the Palestinians were impossible. The Israelis would do anything to make peace and a deal. I found that not to be true.
Our enemies are innovative and resourceful, and so are we. They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people, and neither do we.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Mr. President, are the Israelis operating within the rules of war that you talked about last week being so important? Good talking to you.
But if the thoughts, phrases, and visions really belong to others, it's a form of false advertising.
He looks like a Joe Biden wind-up doll with somebody else's words coming out.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only need 123 credits.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed
pictures of terrorists beating children.
George and me laughing together, and so people were upset. They thought, why is a gay Hollywood liberal sitting next to a conservative Republican president?
You were sitting next to a mass murdering war criminal who specifically targeted people like you for discrimination.
A lot of people were mad, and they did what people do when they're mad. They tweet. Here's one tweet that I loved. This person says, Ellen and George Bush together makes me have faith in America again. And
Boyd tweeted, "This is what class solidarity looks like." He wanted to amend the Constitution to make sure gays could permanently never have equal rights.
exactly.
Trying to push us to World War III because our president is not speaking for the American people, and neither are you.
That's your opinion. Well, then sit down. We've heard your opinion. Thank you very much. Now,
filling block after block around the United Nations to make a single dramatic statement against going to war.
Anti-war protests were on a scale not seen since the Vietnam War. Millions around the globe marched this past.
More than 1 million people jammed into Trafalgar Square to protest U.S. plans for war in Iraq.